Sophie Cunningham, the fines that only made her bigger. You know, a story is different when the punishment doesn't silence the player, it makes her louder. Most athletes get fined once and instantly go careful. They lower their tone, clean up their quotes, and start speaking like every word has to pass through legal approval. But Sophie Cunningham went the other way. The more attention the fines got, the more people started asking the same question. Why does every penalty seem to make her more popular instead of less? And here's where this gets even more interesting. Because this is not just a story about one player getting in trouble for criticizing officials. It's a story about timing, loyalty, pressure, and a league that kept hearing complaints about officiating from all directions while one player became the face of saying it out loud. Stay with me because by the end of this, the fines are almost the least interesting part of the story. Before we go any further, if you like sports stories that go deeper than the headlines, hit subscribe right now because this one is not about a box score. It's about image, power, and why one of the WNBA's loudest controversies kept growing even after the league tried to shut it down. Indiana Fever and the moment everything changed. If you want to understand why Sophie Cunningham became such a lightning rod, you have to start with the game that changed how many fans saw her. On June 18, 2025, the Indiana Fever beat the Connecticut Sun 88-71 in a physical game that turned chaotic late. In the third quarter, J.C. Sheldon poked Caitlin Clark in the eye, and Marina Mabrey then shoved Clark to the floor during the aftermath. Later, with 46.1 seconds left, Sheldon stole the ball and raced ahead before Cunningham wrapped her up for a hard foul under the basket. Cunningham, Sheldon, and Lindsay Allen were all ejected, and Indiana's win also secured the Fever's Commissioner's Cup spot. That final score matters because one of the biggest inaccuracies that keeps getting repeated is that Indiana won 88-77. The official recap says 88-71. That sequence mattered because it instantly changed the emotional meaning of Cunningham to a huge part of the Fever fan base. She was not the franchise superstar. She was not the player drawing all the national cameras. But in the minds of many fans, she became the teammate who answered physicality with physicality when emotions were running hottest. That image stuck, and once that image sticks in sports, it becomes bigger than a single play. Fine number 1 hit social media first. A month later, the story took a new turn. On July 18, 2025, Cunningham posted a TikTok aimed at some refs, lip-syncing a line from Sabrina Carpenter's Man-Child. Stupid, or is it slow? Or maybe useless? The video blew up, drawing more than 1.3 million views, and the WNBA fined her $500. Cunningham publicly laughed it off, writing that it was funny to her and hinting that the league had bigger issues to worry about. That was the first clear sign this wasn't going to be handled quietly. Now normally that would be the end of it. One social media post. One fine. Quick lesson learned. Public move on. Clean ending. But that is exactly where this story stopped being normal. The podcast made it bigger. Just days later, Cunningham launched her podcast, Show Me Something, which she described as unfiltered, and something real for people who are tired of hearing athletes sound overly filtered and careful. The show officially launched on July 30, 2025, and from the beginning, Cunningham made it clear she wanted to speak more freely than most players do in traditional media settings. That mattered because once an athlete controls the microphone, the league loses control of the setting. There is no post-game scrum ending the moment a PR staffer steps in. There is no carefully framed team release. There is just the player, the audience, and the choice to say exactly what most people expect will get them in trouble. And that is exactly what happened. Fine number 2 proved she wasn't backing down. On the second episode of her podcast, Cunningham revealed that the league had fined her again, this time $1,500, for remarks she made about officiating during the premiere episode. In those comments, she said she understood officiating was difficult, but she also questioned how obvious calls right in front of referees could be missed repeatedly. She called the officiating inconsistent and openly mocked the idea that a $500 fine was going to solve anything. What made that second fine stand out even more was how she described finding out about it. According to Cunningham, the league contacted Fever general manager Amber Cox, and Cox then pulled her aside and told her she was being fined again. Cunningham said Cox smiled while delivering the news, and Cunningham herself reacted with disbelief that even after acknowledging how hard officiating is, she was still being punished for criticizing inconsistency. Whether you agree with Cunningham or not, that detail made the whole episode feel less like a one-time incident and more like a recurring drama everybody involved already understood. And once a player gets fined twice in public over the same issue, people stop seeing it as random. They start seeing a pattern. Fine number 3 made the pattern impossible to ignore. Then came fine number 3. On August 20, 2025, IndyStar reported that Cunningham had been fined an undisclosed amount after comments about Dallas Wings rookie Paige Bueckers. On her podcast, Cunningham said she loved Bueckers as a player, but felt the officials were giving her every frickin' whistle during an August 12th game, adding that it felt like you could not touch her. Cunningham then joked that she was now officially 3-for-3 on being fined by the WNBA. That third fine changed the way the whole story looked. Because once is a warning, twice is escalation. 3 times in one season is identity. At that point, the fines were no longer just punishments. They had become part of Cunningham's public image, the outspoken veteran who kept saying what others were thinking, or at least what many fans believed others were too careful to say themselves. Why so many fans took her side? Here's the part that really explains why this story got bigger instead of smaller. The WNBA had already been dealing with rising criticism about officiating from across the league. Coaches and players were openly frustrated. Stephanie White, Indiana's head coach, had already blasted officiating earlier in the season, saying, "Everybody's getting better except the officials," while also saying consistency had to improve. Cathy Engelbert later addressed the issue before the 2025 All-Star Game, saying the league hears the concerns, reviews every play, and has independent evaluation of officials, but also admitted it is something the league needs to continue working on. That context is crucial, because Cunningham was not criticizing officiating in a vacuum. She was doing it in a season where the issue was already boiling over everywhere. That doesn't automatically make every one of her complaints correct. But it does explain why so many fans saw her not as a troublemaker, but as someone willing to say the quiet part loudly. And that is a powerful role in sports. Fans forgive a lot when they believe a player is being real. The league's problem got bigger in 2026. Then the story widened beyond Cunningham herself. According to The Athletic, the WNBA ended the 2025 season after heavy criticism of officiating and entered 2026 with concrete changes. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert had announced measures after the season, and an 8-member off-season task force of coaches and general managers focused on priorities like calling illegal contact more regularly and improving freedom of movement. The league also created a new referee performance and development advisor role for longtime official Eric Bruton. Through the first 10 days of the 2026 season, the WNBA averaged 44 fouls per game, up from 38.7 over the same early stretch in 2025. That doesn't mean Cunningham was proven right in every specific complaint. But it does mean the broader officiating issue was serious enough that the league itself responded with structural changes. And that is where the story turns fascinating. Because when a player keeps getting fined for hammering an issue, and then the league itself later rolls out reforms aimed at that same issue, the public starts reading the whole thing differently. Not as random complaining, not as one athlete losing control, but as a fight over who gets to define what counts as a real problem. The Caitlin Clark factor changed the temperature. You also cannot separate any of this from Caitlin Clark. Clark's presence changed the volume of every Fever storyline. Every hard foul, every whistle, every non-call, every replay, everything became louder, faster, and more heavily debated. And in 2026, the debate over protection and officiating exploded again when Phoenix Mercury forward Alyssa Thomas was suspended 1 game after, in the league's words, recklessly making contact with her fist to the throat area of Clark. The league classified it as a non-basketball act. That moment mattered because it showed the bigger issue had not disappeared. The names changed. The incidents changed. But the underlying argument about physicality, missed calls, and player protection stayed alive. So when fans look back at Cunningham's fines, many of them don't just see a player criticizing refs. They see an early, louder version of a conversation the whole league was eventually forced to keep having. The money was real, but so was the message. And yes, the fines themselves were real. In 2025, Cunningham's known penalties included $500 for the TikTok, $1,500 for podcast comments, and a third undisclosed fine over her Paige Bueckers remarks. Separate from that, the June 2025 Sun altercation also carried a flagrant 2 ejection and fine consequences under league rules. Then in 2026, the WNBA tightened its penalty system even further. The first 3 technical fouls now cost $500 each, fouls 4 through 7 cost $1,000 each, and every technical after that costs $1,500, while flagrant foul point penalties also carry $500 per point. USA Today just women's sports. So no, this was never meaningless. Every time Cunningham kept talking, she was doing it with full awareness that the cost was no longer symbolic. The league had made the price clear. But maybe that is exactly why her fan support kept growing. Because in a sports world full of safe answers, fans notice when someone knows the cost and speaks anyway. The real story isn't about one fine. And this is where the easy headline falls apart. The easy version says Sophie Cunningham criticized the refs, got fined and kept crossing the line. But the harder, more honest version is that she stepped into a league-wide conversation at the exact moment officiating had become one of the WNBA's loudest internal issues. She did it with sarcasm, with bluntness, and with zero interest in sounding polished. The league answered with fines. The public answered with more attention. That is why this story lasted. Not because one player got punished, but because every punishment seemed to convince more people that she was touching a nerve. The ending still hasn't happened. And that's what makes this such a powerful sports story. It doesn't really end with a lesson. It doesn't end with a perfect apology. It doesn't end with everybody suddenly agreeing about officiating. It ends with the tension still sitting there. A veteran player kept speaking. A league kept fining. A fan base kept listening. And the strangest part of all might be this. The more the league tried to make this about discipline, the more the public turned it into a story about authenticity. So maybe the biggest question was never whether Sophie Cunningham would stop. Maybe the real question was whether the league realized that every fine was turning her into a bigger symbol than she was before. If you made it this far, drop your take in the comments. Was Sophie Cunningham out of line, or was she saying what the league needed to hear? And if you want more long-form sports breakdowns like this, subscribe now, because stories like this are never really about one moment. They're about what that moment reveals.